So we've been working pretty hard over the last 12 months to excite a lot of different OEMs. There are many OEMs that are mentioned here, and all of these are in some state or the other in terms of development of an OMH product. Now, there are many different facets to OMH, as the OEMs in the room will realize very quickly. There is obviously the technical effort, which in the OMH case is not all that significant. There is, more importantly, the business strategy that the OEM might have in terms of how they want to approach the open market. So things have changed quite a bit over the last 2 years or so. OEMs used to essentially sell into operators. Today, OEMs sell into operators, they sell into brands, they sell to brands that are supported by operators. All kinds of hybrid models exist. And I believe a lot of these OEMs that you see up on the slide are looking to understand what business model will work in which specific region. These are fairly fundamental to how this open market ecosystem evolves in terms of CDMA. The handsets that you see on the right are a quick sampling of the handsets that we have commercialized over the last few months. We have, at this point in time, about 25 or so handsets that are in place that are OMH compatible. As far as OMH outside of India goes, so we have all 5 operators in India ready with OMH. What that means is that they provision OMH SIM cards. These are made available through their distribution. These enable voice, data, applications, location services, Brew, Java, WAP, MMS. All of that is enabled through these cards. Outside of India, we also have recently, late April, we have enabled all of the Indonesian operators and most of the Nigerian operators on OMH. So what this means for the OEM is that the same exact handset, assuming the right band classes are supported, the same handset can be supported with no change apart from language across all these different operators. All these operators recognize the OMH certification, which is obviously significant in terms of the time to market need. So a handset that is launched in India is now easily usable in another market as long as the commercialization plans are in place. We've recently actually seen the Samsung Corby handset that was launched by Samsung in India, I think in March, getting launched in Indonesia a few weeks ago with no change apart from localization for the language. So that's the advantage that we are looking to see on the operator side, or on the OEM side. Beyond the markets that are already ready, we are working with various operators that are simply looking to leverage OMH in terms of the variety that they get access to. So if you think about the buying process for a typical operator in a market, let's take, for example, Thailand or Mexico, they are looking to get access to handsets that are used by or built for other operators. There is customization that is involved. It's a complicated process. Each operator has their own process. These differ. Significant effort for both the operator and the OEM. So we are in some sense demystifying what it takes for an operator to get a handset on board, what it takes for an OEM to sell a handset to the operator. That's the interest that you are seeing from the operators that are mentioned up in the in-process box up there. And then beyond these operators, obviously the target is to go ahead and get OMH converted over into as many markets that are looking to accept a SIM card-based model. So this is moving fairly quickly, and I think the advantages to the operators have been fairly significant. Just a quick, I don't think there is anything complicated here other than the fact that there is some work that is required for the operator to do before they can call themselves an OMH operator. There is certain harmonization that is required because at the end of the day, we have got to make sure that the handsets that are being developed work out of the box. There is no scope, there is no room for change, no room for customization. These handsets are designed to a spec, a technical spec that has to work with the SIM card and with the network. So the operator's network has to go through a certain amount of testing, and we've tested, I would say, about 15 to 18 networks so far, and we have not run into anything significant that prevents any operator from being able to transition to an OMH-ready state. Once the operator does this harmonization, they have to obviously source and provision the OMH-capable SIM card, which is, again, not significant effort for the operator, and operators in the room here today will, I'm sure, attest to that. And then beyond that, it's as simple as bringing OMS devices into market. So straightforward process. This is technically not very complex. On the other hand, I think the amount of time that it takes logistically, decision making, the expanse of the overall ecosystem, that's kind of what slows things down. The logo that was mentioned earlier that you see down below is exhibited clearly on both SIM cards as well as either the handset or the packaging of the handset to get the end consumer to realize that there is compatibility between these two, between the device and the SIM card. So if you look on the right-hand side, what we have very simply done is we have basically limited the customization to simply the user interface, the user experience, and any localization or language-specific changes that the operator, the OEM, or the brand may choose to make. Everything else that you see below on the right-hand side is standard. It's a standard spec for 1X handsets, it's a standard spec for DO handsets, it's a standard spec for dongles, for fixed wireless phones. There is no ambiguity here. The networks work the same way, as do the handsets. And this is what is tested. So once you go through testing at our labs in Hyderabad, and you essentially follow that process, you get the OMH approval. Beyond that, the customization is limited to something that is extremely cosmetic or something that is specific to a region. If you contrast this with the diagram on the left, where each operator obviously had different requirements. Now, the requirements may have been not very far apart, but in terms of how they needed to be understood by each OEM, that's kind of where the pain points were. So that's what we've taken care of with the OMH process. So we started the process off in August of last year, and we are at this time on our third iteration of the test process. We realized that what we came up with initially was pretty extensive, and we are all engineers. Qualcomm is a tech-heavy company, so we essentially overshot what was needed in terms of the test scope. From the first iteration to the third that we are at now, we actually now have timelines where we can get a 1X handset through some very exhaustive testing within 3 weeks, and a DO handset within 4 weeks. So, and there are proof points of this. OEMs such as Samsung and many others will attest to the timelines that I'm talking about. We've seen from the time that we engage in terms of the development effort, where the OEM essentially takes an existing platform, converts it over to OMH, does the development, gets into the lab. We support them with some pre-testing to make sure that the handset is fairly robust to get into formal testing. The declaration is a very straightforward process where the OEM is essentially following an honor-based system. They basically take the test results, and if there is anything that fails, they declare to the test and acceptance group that there are failures. And if everything passes, you just go through. That's a 24-hour turnaround process. So 3 weeks for development, 3 weeks for testing, 24 hours to turn around and get the device accepted. And that's what we are seeing as fairly typical. And I'm sure all of you will agree that this is pushing it in terms of what is realistically possible. I think in terms of the advantage, the device is now accepted for any OMH network. So the more OMH networks that we go create, the larger their addressable base for those handsets becomes.